Hey there, Leslie here. I want to talk to you a little bit about when it's time and the rubber meets the road and it's time for you to just go for it. There's a story that I want to tell you about a woman named Esther, and there's a whole book in the Bible dedicated to her. But this is a historic fact that there was a King Xerxes, and King Xerxes in Persia, in the city of Susa, which was a big city in Persia. The kings back then had a harem, and Esther was a Jewess who was not wealthy. She was living with her uncle Mordecai. Her own parents died. I'm sure they were young, but they died, and they left her an orphan, but her cousin Mordecai took her under his wing and took care of her. She was incredibly beautiful, and her beauty was captivating. It didn't go unnoticed, so that when the king wanted to add to his harem, she and many others were taken captive. There was no choice in these matters. This was not a city where Jews were predominant. Jewish people were the minority, and it was comprised mostly of people who worshipped idols, and the Jewish people were taken captive by the Persians and taken to the town of Susa. And so they kept their faith, but they were in a town of heathens, a big city. So they were in the minority in their beliefs, but yet Esther was taken captive and taken in as part of the harem. And so she didn't have a choice. And she was under the tutoring of one of the king's eunuchs there. And so she learned the proper way to behave and proper way to perfume herself and all of this in the harem. And they also had probably educational classes there as well, so she could converse. She knew how to read. And so Mordecai was not liked, her uncle, her cousin, was not liked by the king's right-hand man. He was despised by Haman. And Haman was just biding his time to do something reprehensible to Mordecai. And what he did was he figured he might as well cover all his bases, and he decided to put out an edict and tell the kings that Jewish people were causing problems, and that we should just have an edict that puts to death all the Jewish people in the land that was under the king. And so the king signed it, not knowing that his own wife was a Jewess. And Mordecai sat himself down in a courtyard and covered himself, put on a sackcloth and covered himself in ashes, grieving. And the word got back to Esther, and she wanted to know what was happening because she was pretty protected in the kingdom. And Mordecai sent word back that now is the time for you to stand up. Now is the time for you to move. Now is the time for you to go forward with no fear. And so she and her maids fasted for 3 days in contemplation of what she was going to have to do. And she was going to have to go in the hall where only men gathered with the king and make it known what her wishes were. So she burst through the doors, and the king was kind of shocked, and he extended his scepter to her. So this was highly unusual what she was doing. And he gave her the scepter that she could touch. That meant she was protected. And she asked that he come to dinner, which he did. And then instead of covering this topic at that first dinner, she asked him to come for a second dinner. Now Haman was at both dinners. At the second dinner, she divulged to the king what Haman, she summoned the courage up to talk about what Haman had done. Now the king could not go back on this edict. Once a law was passed, it was passed. But then he gave permission for the Jewish people to defend themselves. But she had to step out on faith, step out with courage to do what she was meant to do. And in the Bible it says, for such a time as this. So what is it that you need to step over and through and go towards? What is it that God has for you in the future that you're procrastinating about, that you're putting fear in front of you, that someone is stopping you, or you feel they are, or there was no support to you, and so you use that to not go after what God has for you? It's time. For such a time as this, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to move. Today's the day. So I want you to think about that. Comment below and let me know what you think. No more procrastination. No more letting fear bog you down. Let's go. Today's the day. All right. Take care. And comment below and let me know. I always love to hear what you think and what's on your heart and your mind. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you in the next video.